Hi guys, my name is Colin and this is Colin Talks Crypto. Thank you very much for joining me. In this episode, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to do a Bitcoin update and I'm going to show you where I feel we are on this journey, if I feel we're going to head to higher highs yet, or if I've capitulated, and if I feel we're in a bear market. I'm also going to introduce to you a brand new metric added to the CBBI, the Colin Talks Crypto Bitcoin Bull Run Index, and why I chose it and how it works. Thanks for joining me. All right, guys, so here is a bit of a macro view. This is from about 1 year ago, from August to about December of 2021. So this encompasses about 1 year of time. And you can see that we're on a massive upward bull pennant. And as this user, Chris Ray, shared, he says, giant bull flags, sorry my dear bears. Now this goes back to 2017. It shows a massive bull pennant forming with the last all-time high and a new bull pennant including the recent $64,000 price top. Now I want to zoom into the more recent portion, and let's zoom in on that on this particular picture. I actually made this, I posted this, you may have seen this on Twitter earlier. Basically on the top, you see that same chart we were just looking at, but let's zoom into this portion right here. You see this little green box? The more recent 1 or 2 months that we're in, from August 2021 up until October 2021 is what that box encompasses. And you can see something very interesting. About a day ago, this blue line of resistance was broken and has now become support, as you can see by the Bitcoin price bouncing off of it now. It actually just broke through this upper yellow resistance line as well. But this yellow resistance line is quite massive, and I just want to show you how far back it goes. It goes back to the beginning of September, where it first served as both resistance and then support, and then resistance again, then support twice, then resistance again, resistance, resistance, and where we stand today is we have just broken through it. And so I do feel it's just a matter of time before we break out of this larger triangle. This triangle will likely be breached prior to February 2022. I'm guessing somewhere around here where my mouse cursor is, somewhere within the next 1 to 2 months. My guess is that we will blast through this resistance line, creating new all-time highs higher than $64,000, and we will continue on up from there toward the end of the year. And my Bitcoin bull run prediction, my price prediction, has remained the same to this day. It is still $100,000 to $300,000 on the upside by approximately January, give or take a month in either direction. Now I give that as sort of a soft target because for me, it's not about dates. It's not about exact numbers because I don't think that anyone can truly tell you the number that the Bitcoin price is going to hit. I think that there's a range that's likely, like I said, 100,000 to 300,000. I don't think that you can just put a number on it. I don't think you can say 150,000 exactly. And maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe some guy out there will get lucky by doing that. But I don't think that luck is a good way to try to take profits. I don't think that luck is a good way to invest or to speculate in the markets. And so for myself personally, I'm going to be using the CBBI. And you've probably heard of me talk about this before. But if you haven't, I'm going to introduce it to you real briefly. And then I'm going to introduce a brand new metric and why I added it. So you can visit the CBBI at CBBI.info. And basically it is an index. An index is a portfolio of metrics. And in this case, the CBBI now encompasses 12 different metrics. And it helps us understand the stage of the bull run and the bear market cycles and where we are at in those cycles. It puts a simple one number index score on the Bitcoin bull run. The closer we approach 100 is the closer that this index says that we may be approaching the Bitcoin price top. The closer that this index approaches 0 is the closer that this index feels we are approaching the bear market bottom. And obviously this information is useful for potentially taking profits at the top and buying more and accumulating at the bottom. It goes without saying that none of this is financial advice. I think that it's a fun way to look at the scores of different metrics and to get an idea of where we may be at in the Bitcoin bull run cycle. So there's a daily score at the top, which is currently 53 on September 30th, 2021. And now if we want to get a little more granular historical data, we scroll down and we take a look, and here's all the 12 current Bitcoin metrics. By the way, you can follow the Twitter score daily, automatically sent to your home feed at CBBI_daily. That's the @ CBBI_daily. And that gives you your daily dose of CBBI updates to your Twitter feed. So please follow that bot if you haven't already. Now, we're not going to go through all the rest of these particular scores. If you're interested in learning about them, click on the very first introductory video right here, and that explains most of what these are. By the way, Kamil Monich and myself are the two developers of this. Kamil is an ingenious coder, and he has put this into an automated format, something that I don't have the technical prowess to do. So we've combined our skills and created this CBBI index. I'm going to give you a quick orientation to this historical chart down here. Basically, there are many toggle switches, and so you can customize this to view it how you want to. There's a raw graph, there's a Bitcoin price here, then we can overlay the CBBI confidence score on top of that Bitcoin price. We can also overlay the halving events indicated by those purple H's with the dotted lines. And if you want to see the peak highs and the peak lows as the algorithm recognizes them, we can also take a look at that. So right now you're looking at the full chart with all the information as it is displayed. We're going to disable a lot of this. We're just going to take a look at the CBBI confidence score, and we'll add in the halving event there for some orientation as well. Now there's also toggle switches for every one of these metrics. There's a button here we can toggle off all of the metrics, and then you can add one at a time, and you can see exactly how the CBBI is interpreting these scores into the overall metric. You can see how each individual metric influences the score. And so if you don't like one of them, you can actually deselect it and see, for example, all the metrics, and let's say you don't want the Bitcoin search term. You can just disable that one, and you can see that it makes a slight difference to the overall score. Some impact it more greatly than others. Also, there's different time sliders here, so you can click on the last 6 years, the last 3 years, 1 year, the last 6 months, etc. So you can take a look at all the different time spans if you want to zoom in for more granular information. Now let's toggle off all the metrics, and let's toggle on the WooBull TopCap versus CVDD. And this is how this single metric is being interpreted by the CBBI. And there's a little bit of custom coding here. We are using linear regression on the peaks and the valleys to make sure that it does keep up with the halving nature of the Bitcoin bull runs, because it's not likely we're going to see the same gigantic growth every single bull run, every single cycle. It just doesn't make sense to go to infinity. And this is part of the S-curve of adoption of any disruptive technology. There is an early adopter phase, there's a more steep, euphoric, vertical adoption phase, and then there's a tapering phase at the top where you have most of the globe has adopted this technology, and it's just the stragglers and the latecomers that are hopping on board toward the end. And so it makes sense that Bitcoin's adoption at some point in the future will slow down. I don't think that we're personally anywhere near that yet. I think that we're still full steam ahead. But we do also have a Bitcoin halving event that reduces its impact every 4 years, because the number of Bitcoins issued per block gets cut in half every 4 years. And that impact then is 50% less every 4 years. So it makes sense to use linear regression, in my opinion, on all of these different metrics, because it gives us a way to keep up with that decreasing issuance rate as a byproduct of the Bitcoin halving event. The new metric here we're calling the WooBull TopCap versus CVDD. And so this blue line down here is the WooBull metric on CBBI. It's actually two of Willy Woo's metrics. And Willy Woo, if you haven't followed him, is a renowned statistician and on-chain blockchain analysis for Bitcoin. He's a guru in this space, and we've actually taken a look at all his different metrics, picked out two of them, and made our own custom CBBI metric out of two of those metrics. So this blue line is that interpretation of those two metrics. If we toggle on all the different metrics, you can see how it changes. So this is just the WooBull, and when I click this button, you're going to see all of the 12 CBBI metrics added to it. And therefore you get the full picture and the robustness. You know, some people might say, well, why don't you just pick one metric like WooBull? It looks like it was pretty accurate. Or why don't you just pick the pi cycle top indicator or any combination of these? It's because of robustness. It's because of human bias, and because we don't know which metrics are the most accurate. We will know in hindsight only, but we don't know beforehand. And so the way we combat this with CBBI is we take an average of all of the top metrics, and we use those to formulate our overall index score. So now I want to take a trip and show you Willy Woo's page here. This is charts.woobull.com. Feel free to visit this and check this out for yourself. And this particular chart actually shows quite a few different metrics. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different metrics all overlaid on the Bitcoin price. So 9 different scores. So what I did is I took a look at this, and I want to give a quick shout out to Old Dirty Pleb on Twitter. He's the guy who brought this to my attention. I do pay attention to user comments. I don't necessarily add all of them, but I do look into them. And he said, any chance of incorporating Willy Woo's TopCap model into the CBBI? So I took a look at it. And what I found is that most of these metrics are not useful for our purposes. So I'm going to disable 7 out of these 9 different metrics, the ones we are not using. And I'm just going to leave the TopCap and the CVDD, which we will define in a second here. And so you can see right now we've got the green dotted line on the top and we've got the purple solid line on the bottom. And what do you notice about this? The first most obvious thing that you notice about this is that it perfectly encompasses the bear market bottoms at the bottom and the bull run peaks at the top. There's literally no overlap, no overshooting. They are perfect estimators and representations of the bull run peaks and the bear market bottoms. And so I weeded out all the noise, all those 7 other different metrics that did not tell us this. And so we're taking a look at 2 metrics and finding the distance of the Bitcoin price between these 2 metrics and plotting that using linear regression over time as our metric, as our single metric. So I want to give a big thanks to Willy Woo for all his tremendously hard work, and he spends so much time analyzing blockchain data and creating metrics and statistics like these. So thank you so much, Willy Woo. If you have contact with Willy Woo, please tag him or get in touch with him and let him know that his metrics, 2 of them, are now being used as part of the CBBI Bitcoin Bull Run Index. And I want to define these 2 for you guys because you're probably wondering what they are. So let's start with TopCap. And I've highlighted them down here. So in yellow, TopCap, which is an experimental metric by Willy Woo himself, is simply the average market cap multiplied by 35. And historically, this has matched market tops. And sure enough, it does, with these green dotted lines literally touching every market peak. I do want to note that the sub peak in 2013 was also marked as a top. And interestingly enough, the sub peak, or what I believe to be the sub peak of $64,000 this year, was not marked as a top. And I find that very interesting that there's an inconsistency there where it did mark one as a top and it did not mark the other as a top. Usually the metrics I've seen either mark them both as tops or don't mark either of them as tops. So that to me is fascinating, and we will have to see how this unfolds. But I do want to include this because it does correctly include all the previous Bitcoin bull run peaks. Now, how about this bottom line, the purple line, the CVDD? That stands for Cumulative Value Days Destroyed, and this is an on-chain metric. The CVDD has historically picked the bottom of the market. When coins pass from old investor to new investor, the transaction carries a USD value and also destroys an amount of HODL time by the previous holder. CVDD is the cumulative sum of this value time destruction as a ratio to the age of the market and divided by 6 million as a calibration factor. So basically the 6 million simply calibrates it to line up with all these bear market bottoms. But once you do that simple process, it literally matches them all perfectly. And so here you have it, guys. We have the what we call the WooBull TopCap versus CVDD metric as added to the Colin Talks Crypto Bitcoin Bull Run Index. It's now the 12th metric. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I really do strive to keep this index constant, but it is still in beta. We haven't even gone through a full Bitcoin bull run cycle, so I don't want to ossify or solidify the metrics just yet when we haven't really seen how it can perform. And maybe there's 1 or 2 that we actually want to remove. Like my suspicion is we probably want to remove the golden 51-49% ratio because it was off this bull run, unless by chance $64,000 was the peak, but then every other metric was off as well. And I really think that that chance is like 10% or less. I do think that we still have a 90% chance or higher that we're going to see new all-time highs this year or January of 2022, and they're going to surpass $64,000 massively. But I want to let you know that the goal is to ossify this and eventually make it a more permanent collection of metrics. But really the main goal, the most important goal, is accuracy. So I will do whatever it takes to make sure that this is the most accurate index possible. And any time that we do add a new metric or remove a metric, don't worry because it is reflected in real time throughout the entire history, the entire CBBI historical score here. For example, before we added the WooBull, this is what the score looked like. Then we added the WooBull and it had a slight adjustment. And that's because this is a very dynamic site and it updates in real time. So if you're wondering if we add a metric that might make the past historical data suddenly invalid because we're not comparing apples to apples, it's not the case. Everything is apples to apples on this site. Everything you see here is reflective of the entire history. And so with all that being said, my summary of the bull run is as follows. Back when we hit the $64,000 price peak, we hit a score of approximately 73, as currently indicated by the CBBI. You can see that as we go across these little peaks here, there was a 74. That looks like the highest spot we hit. Let's actually zoom into that. Let's go to the 1 year, and you can see that right here we hit 74 on the CBBI. Now let's zoom back out again, and really the simple way to look at this is past Bitcoin peaks have hit a score of 100. I don't know that it will always be perfectly 100, but if we approach 100, I would say that we are likely near a top. Not financial advice. Now, what did we see? We saw 74. 74 is a far cry from 100. So using all 12 of these different metrics, they are saying that this was not a price peak. They're saying that this is very likely a sub-peak. Even the sub-peak back in 2013 had a score of 84, which is much higher than a 74. So not only did our sub-peak not go as high as in 2013, we are a far cry from 100 on the score. So what I want to see is something more like 90 to 100. I'm just speaking personally. I'm just going to give you what I'm going to do, guys. I'm personally most likely going to take profits, not when we hit a certain price target, not when we hit a certain date. You know, I give you guys an approximate estimation. I think it might be January. I think it's 100 to 300,000, but that's not how I'm going to take profits. I'm going to take profits using the CBBI when the score gets between the range of 90 and 100. Like here's 90 on the last bull run and here's 100. In that range right there, that's when I'm going to personally, not financial advice, I'm going to start taking profits. And that's right here. And you can see we have a ways to go. Currently, we're at like 52 on the CBBI. We are a ways from the peak. So that's how I'm personally using this. And likewise, after the bull run peak, the true bull run peak has been surpassed, possibly later this year. And we've had the bear market, and it's crashed, and it's crashed. And a year to 2 years later, we finally bottom out. Just like you can see here on the CBBI, with a score of 4 and 4 at the low. Here's a 3 even. I'm going to use that as my approximate gauge for future bear market cycles. And so I'm probably going to start accumulating between about 15 on the CBBI and 5 on the CBBI, or 0 if it goes that low. And I think that that would be a tremendous accumulation zone. Because here's the thing, nobody's going to perfectly take profits at the top, and no one's perfectly going to buy at the bottom. If you do, then congratulations, you basically just won the lottery. And if you did it once, don't count on doing it every single time thereafter. It's essentially impossible statistically. The amount of time that the bull run spends at an actual Bitcoin peak is very small. It could be days, it could be hours. The actual peak is very short-lived. To time that actual peak is literally a stroke of luck and good fortune. And so really, I think that if you can get within 10 or 15% of the top and 10 or 15% of the bottom, you are doing a much better job than 99% of traders out there. That is an incredible, incredible feat. So that's how I'm using CBBI. I'm using it as a macro indicator for where to take profits and where to buy in the Bitcoin cycle. So for me personally, I'm going to be taking profits above 90 most likely on the CBBI. And I'm going to be buying at 15 and below on the CBBI. And I want to share my opinion and answer to a question I've gotten just a couple of times. There's a couple of users out there who basically said that if I share this publicly, and if everyone were to follow this, then it won't happen as planned. Because basically the market is going to be acting on the CBBI, and then we won't see those peaks anymore because people will start taking profits before we get to the peak, and they'll crash the price before we get there. And the same would happen before the bear market, presumably, as well. And my answer to that is sort of as follows. My channel only has 33,000 people currently, 34,000, something like that. On Twitter, I have 15,000. Thank you very much, by the way, guys. I really appreciate all of you who have followed me recently. I just hit the 15,000 milestone on Twitter. But with that being said, That's not that many people out there. You know, there's millions of investors in Bitcoin. There's not that many people who know about this site yet. Maybe someday they will. And maybe someday, if it ever does gain any widespread recognition, perhaps it may have a slight dent in the market cycles if everyone's acting on it. But it's not reached that point yet. And I think that we have probably a couple bull runs to go before anything like that even has a chance of occurring. So just consider, and this is my answer, that this is the early CBBI adopter chance at taking advantage of this particular index. Not everyone knows about this. It is correct. If everyone acted on this, it wouldn't reach these peaks and these valleys. But there are crypto influencers out there that have hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers, and even millions. I think Altcoin Daily just surpassed 1 million followers. So 34,000 versus 1 million. It's not even a comparison. Nobody is tracking this. Those who are smart and who see what I see are. And I invite you and I welcome you, and I'm sharing this with you because I couldn't have done this without the community's creation. Not only your support in the form of donations, thank you very much, by the way, and please do donate if you find this useful, because these donations get split 50-50 between myself and Kamil Manich, the creator of the backend and the code behind this that makes this automated every day. And he made the Twitter bot. He makes everything that you see that's automated. And we work together to create this the best index that we know how. But basically, this is our creation, and I would not have found him if I hadn't made this free and to the public. And so there is power in community. And I recognize that there's a pro and a con to that. The pro is that we have this beautiful, elegant index. The con is that if it gains mainstream attention, then it's probably not going to work. But again, I give that another bull run or two. I don't think that that's going to happen this bull run. And so guys, I invite you to join me in this journey and to take profits at the top, to buy at the bottom before everyone else and their mother figures out about this. Because I guarantee you, when we do hit the all-time high, and this does accurately call the peak, this is going to start getting on people's radar. But until then, take advantage of it, make as much profits as you can, and I wish you the best of luck in this upcoming bull run that I feel strongly we are not over with, and we have far, far to go. It's going to get steep, it's going to get exciting. And so that's all I have for you today. Please do visit CBBI.info. Please share this with your friends. Please share this with any groups you're a part of. Please make a donation if you feel that we have earned it. And none of that is necessary or required. This is a completely free site, but it does motivate us and help us to create what you have seen before your eyes. And lastly, a big thank you to Old Dirty Pleb. A big thank you to Willy Woo, who made these WooBull charts. And here's his Twitter profile right here. You can follow him at Woonomic. You can see he's got almost 750,000 followers. And that is not without good reason. All right, guys, have a great day, and I will talk to you again soon.